Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head to Slovenia once again. So this was another beer that was very kindly donated to me by my friend Davor, who is down in Ljubljana in Slovenia. And this time we are going to return to Nova Gorica, which is of course home to Pivovarna Reservoir dogs. And this is one that I've heard some very good things about. Davor, of course, he's probably a bigger beer geek than me, to be honest, but this is one that he really wanted me to try. So we're going to have a look at the Grim Reaper today, which is an IPA, and it comes in at 7% ABV. According to Rate Beer, this one has a 95 out of 100. As I always say though, don't take Rate Beer as the kind of definitive word when it comes to your beer, because there are a few kind of vested interests in the management of the company, but it does give you a fairly decent barometer of how good your beer is going to be. And to be honest, my previous experience with this brewery, the Batch 50, was a really good one, and Davor rates these guys very highly, and he's probably a bigger beer geek than me, to be quite honest, but I know this is going to be a pretty damn good beer, and I'm glad that I'm able to review it for you here on the channel. I've been very impressed generally with the standard of beers that I've had from Slovenia, and Slovenia of course traditionally is a wine country, so yeah, so really interested to try this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Pivovarna Reservoir dogs before, and no doubt I will add some more in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, prefecture, county, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there of course for all the Slovenian beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to whenever I can, and please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys, and the support that you give the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Pivovarna Reservoir dogs then. So Reservoir Dogs was founded by four friends who basically brewed as a hobby in their spare time. So this was Uros Komil, who was a mathematician, Alosa Polensic, who is a neurologist, and I think he is the one that is mainly in charge of the brewing these days. There's also Andrej Sluga, who is an economist, and Matthew Bredzigar, who was an electrical engineer. So they say that they basically just wanted to brew beer for themselves initially, and they learned much of their trade from the internet, just going and reading beer manuals and home brewing manuals, but their beers proved to be very popular among their friends, and they continued to expand the rate at which they were brewing and also the capacity of things that they were brewing. But the company itself was founded officially in 2014, initially as a contract brewer. They were brewing their beers first off at the Gold Club Aidovština Hotel, and they're now based in Nova Gorica, like I mentioned to you a minute ago. And this little town is right on the border with Italy, and they're currently working on a new brewery building, and they do hope to have a tap room there at some point in the future. And the brewery is named after the Quentin Tarantino film Reservoir Dogs, of course, which is quite a good film. I had to watch it once I'd actually learned a little bit more about this brewery and things, and I have to admit I do quite like it. But I guess it's their kind of cult film that these four guys like. But my previous experience with this brewery, the Batch 50, was a really nice beer, and I'm definitely looking forward to trying this one. So I hope you guys enjoy my take on this one. Just to list a few of the other beers you can get from these guys, of course, there's the Conqueror, which is a session ale. There's this one, the Grim Reaper IPA. There's the Lone Wolf, which is a single hop one. I have filmed the review for that already. I'm not sure in which order I'll publish it though. There's also the Medana in Kubo, which is a sour beer, Starvation, which is a black IPA, Sukubo, which is a regular IPA, and also the Warrior, which is a pale ale as well. And it is interesting to see that these guys are doing a sour beer, because Slovenia, of course, I guess is quite a new country when it comes to the whole craft beer thing, but it is cool to see that this brewery are experimenting with stuff like that so early on. So if you do get the chance, Pivovarna Reservoir Dogs are one, I think, of the kind of big three craft breweries in Slovenia. I think it's Pelletsson or the other one, and then you also have Human Fish as well, and those three I think are the biggest, but there's lots of other guys kind of experimenting, and the standard of beer generally, like I mentioned, in Slovenia it seems to be very good. But Davor, of course, is the man to keep you up to date with that. But that's all you need to know about the brewery for just now. Let's actually get on to the tasting section of this beer then. So like I mentioned to you, it's a 7% IPA. Davor was telling me it's a company secret what hops are actually used in this beer, so we'll just need to go with our noses and our mouths on this one. But yeah, nicely presented. As always, you've got some pretty cool artwork from Reservoir Dogs. I do like this. This one's a little bit more kind of artistic than the other ones. I did like the the artwork that was on the Lone Wolf. The Batch 50 was just a kind of special version of the Brewery's artwork. I do like this kind of almost minimalist Tetris tile type thing that they have. It really does remind me of that old Game Boy game Tetris. But yeah, 7% IPA this one, best before April 2018. So yeah, it should be a really nice beer this. So without further ado then, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. Really looking forward to this one, and once again a huge thank you to Davor for donating this beer to the channel. And it was great to actually get to meet him in Germany when we were there. We got to share some beers and a schnitzel together at the Augustiner Keller. I'll tell you something, when you open this beer up right away, there's some of these nice kind of peachy, apricotty notes coming out of this, the sort of stone fruity things. There's a wee bit of a passion fruit, I would say, in there as well, but we'll take a closer look at the aroma in a little minute and see how we get on. So yeah, as you can see, and as you would kind of expect from an IPA, it's poured a really nice kind of blood orange colour. I'm not sure how well you can see from the light in this one, but it's got a really nice, just rich orangey colour. There's a kind of half finger of a frothy white head in this beer, and it looks really nice. One or two big bubbles, around the edge of the glass, but quite a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of that head. And I think it's fair to say it's a kind of creamy white head that's on this one, rather than a kind of perfect white. There is a little bit of a kind of creamy, very slightly beige tinge to it, but it looks very nice. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see the beer does have a certain degree of haze to it, but it looks really nice and pretty much what you would expect from an IPA. So let's have a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on. Oh, that smells really quite nice actually. It's a big juicy fruity IPA, this one, and I have to say that's something that I notice with the Slovenian IPAs. There does seem to be a tendency that they like their IPAs juicy there. It reminds me quite a bit of some of the New Zealand IPAs that I had when I was down there, but this is really nice. So yeah, with this one, there's a good bit of bready malt in this. It does have a little bit of an almost cereally character underneath, but you can smell some nice biscuity sweetness as well. But it's a big, juicy, fruity character that's coming out of this one. It's slooshing around a wee bit. I'm just trying to sugar it up and get the fruity characters out of it. But yeah, there's a wee bit of passion fruit in there. There's almost, I think there's a wee bit of an orangey character. There's a bit of an orangey citrus in there, I think, as well. Maybe they've used some Amarillo in here. I think there's definitely a little bit of orangey note coming out of that one, but definitely some passion fruits. I'm getting a good bit of apricotty note from this. There's some stone fruits in there, definitely these kind of peachy apricotty notes, and I think passion fruit as well. It's very, the fruity characters in this one lean towards the juicy side of things, and I'm getting these kind of lighter tropical fruits on the kind of top end of the beer, but I think there's a bit of a kind of richer orange in there also. You can smell, when you just let it settle, you can smell a little bit more of the passion fruit. When you shake it up, you start to get a bit of orangey character, and then those tropical notes, peaches, apricots, not sure, maybe a little bit of pineapple, and maybe some mango as well. But yeah, it smells nice, and of course, there is a wee bit of that kind of grassy floral character. Davor was saying to me with this one, he reckons that they use a Slovenian bittering, or a Slovenian hop as the bittering hop. Maybe Dana or something like that, I'm not quite sure. But then of course the Slovenians do have their own aroma hops as well. You've got the Cardinal, you've got the Celaya, you have the Styrian Wolf as well. They're all really nice hops. The kind of one downside, I guess, to Slovenian hops is that they are produced only in fairly small quantities, but when you actually get a hold of these, they are really, really nice. The Styrian Wolf is a beautiful hop. Cardinal, from what I understand, is really nice as well. I've not had that on its own. That's one that I would love to try on its own. And Celaya, I've had some really positive experiences with as well. But this is a really nice, juicy smelling beer, particularly when you've got beers from a country, I guess, that it's kind of unusual to get them from. Do just take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer, because usually you will find that there's some kind of local hops in there and there's some unusual aromas to be picked up. But really, this IPA leans towards the kind of nice, juicy, fruity side of things. So yeah, without further ado then, let's get stuck into this one and see how we get on. So this one is the Grim Reaper, a 7% IPA from Pivovarna Reservoir dogs in Nova Gorica in the western part of Slovenia. Once again, a huge thank you to Davor for giving me this beer. Let's get stuck in. Na zdravje, slanje. That is pretty good. Again, it really, as I was saying, it seems to me that the Slovenians like their IPAs a little bit juicy. It's definitely got that kind of West Coast IPA feel to it, but it's just a little bit more juicy. I mean, you can see the haze of this. By no means is this one of these New England IPAs. It's definitely a West Coast IPA in flavour and in feel, but it has that almost juicy character, that just nice juiciness that you expect of some of these New England IPAs a little bit. But that's really nice. The first thought that comes into my head with this one is this would actually be a really, really nice beer to have just on if it as a tap beer. I just think this one, it's got a nice little bit of smoothness. If it had just a wee tiny bit more carbonation to it, it would be really nice on tap, I think. But even as it is, it's a really, really quite nice beer, this one. And again, as I was mentioning, it has that almost New Zealand kind of juicy quality to it. The way the hops come out in this are really juicy, and that's a trend I've definitely picked up on when I've been trying all of these different Slovenian beers. I think this is my 10th or so Slovenian beer that I've reviewed for you on the channel, and they've all been really good. This one is a little bit more, actually, in comparison to the other ones I've had before. This one's a little bit kind of more aggressive in its hop bitterness, but it's a really, really good quality beer. But as I always say, sugar it around your palate and just let your whole mouth adjust before you start analysing the flavour too much. But you can tell right away this is a good quality beer. Yeah, that's nice. So yeah, with the malt base on this one, it's fairly straight up. It's what you'd expect. You can feel a little bit of that kind of pale malt in the middle of your palate there. On top of that, there's some nice kind of thicker white bready character. There's a wee bit of a kind of cereally note to this one. I do suspect that's another trend that you'll find with some of the Slovenian malts, because they probably are using local malt in this, I would think. Or maybe a little bit of German malt and a little bit of local Slovenian malt. But you can pick up, there is a little bit of a kind of cereally, kind of grainy character to the malt base in this one. But if you go right into the middle of your palate, you can detect there's a little bit of biscuity sweetness there, and just a slightly kind of richer caramel as well. But overall, it's a really quite nice beer. I have to say that about this. There's no doubt in my mind. The malt base is straight up. The complexity in this one starts to come out from the fruity side of things, but the malt base itself is really quite nice and quite smooth. Yeah, that's good. You do get a little bit of a boozy characteristic from this one. Just on the back end, you can pick up a little bit of the alcohol content in this one, and it's quite a nice little touch. It makes the beer just a little bit warming. On the sides of the palate then, where you get the hoppy notes, there's a wee tiny little bit of earthiness there just coming out in the back corner of the palate, and as you come further forward along the sides of your tongue, you get this nice floral aromatic character. It's got a wee bit of a kind of spicy note to it, and then around the very front curve of your palate you get a little bit of that lighter kind of grassy character, and I think that is the Slovenian bittering hops coming out. I found that the bittering hops from Slovenia did have that that kind of quality that was very similar to the German noble hops. A little bit of earthiness, some nice floral character, and then just a little bit of lighter grassy note. The Slovenian bittering hops give the kind of similar result, if you like, I think, when it comes to the beers. But the fruity note in this beer is really quite nice. So yeah, if you just go behind the front curve of your palate, that's where you'll get this little oily bubble where all these nice kind of juicy fruity notes come out of the beer. You can feel there's a wee bit of a passion fruity note just kind of underpinning this one. There's maybe a wee touch of grapefruit in there as well. You can just feel a little bit of that darker grapefruit, but to me, mainly it's a little bit of passion fruit. I'm not getting the orangey note that I picked up in the aroma. It has there's maybe a wee bit of that lighter kind of tangerine note, but it's not. I thought there was maybe some Amarillo in this just from the aroma, but it doesn't really. I don't think it has from the flavour. There may be a wee bit of mosaic or something like that, and that because you start to get flavours in this as the flavour progresses. You've seen how long it was since I took a sip of this beer. I'm starting to get a little bit of the kind of peachy sort of apricot, maybe even sort of pineapple kind of flavours. You're starting to get these kind of nice juicy tropical notes, and you do get a little bit of that complexity when it's the mosaic, and there's a wee bit of an almost tangerine note coming out of this beer as well. Yeah, and there is a wee bit of an orangey character, but then when I'm tasting this, I've had a good few beers with the Mosaic now. I'm doubting that it is Mosaic just because of the way these tropical fruits are coming out. Normally when you try so many hops, like the Citra is obvious to me now, the Simcoe's obvious, Amarillo can be quite obvious as well, Mosaic a little bit less so because it's a newer hop, but I have to admit on second taste, I'm not so sure it is Mosaic in there. It doesn't matter what hops are in there, of course. It's more about whether the beer's good, and it certainly is. But as the flavour in this one progresses, you get a little bit of this kind of peachy note, and it's actually, it turns into apricots. It's got that nice kind of lighter apricot character to it. There's maybe a wee bit of an almost lychee or gooseberry flavour as you get further and further into the aftertaste of this, but it's basically the fruity character in this one. It's a little bit of passion fruit with a little bit of that darker grapefruit on the tongue, but then as the flavour progresses you start to get these things like gooseberries, lychees, a little bit of apricot, maybe some peaches, a little bit of an almost tangerine note as well, which is really nice. But the main thing to take away from the flavour is it's a really quite nice beer. All the flavours go together quite well, and the little thing I was talking about with the malt base, with the kind of grainy note it has, it builds a good bridge between the malt base and the smoothness that it has, and also a little bit of that slightly spicy floral aromaticity from the hops. But basically it's a really nice beer, and it's another very high standard one from Slovenia, so it is cool to see the standard of beers that these guys are able to produce. The last beer I had from these guys was an Imperial Stout. These are the two ones that I've had now are IPAs, and it's cool to see that at both ends of the spectrum they're able to produce some really interesting stuff. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say this beer is mid-bodied. Carbonation is quite soft. I think if you wanted it for a summer day, it maybe could do with just a wee touch more carbonation to it, but very slightly. Obviously you don't want to overdo it. It has a little bit of a prickle, but overall it's quite a smooth beer, this one. The mouthfeel, it has a little bit of oily character, but it almost has a wee bit of a kind of chalky quality to it as well. It's got that typical kind of smoothness. It's somewhere in between the West Coast IPA and the East Coast IPA, or the New England IPA in terms of its mouthfeel. It does have that typical smoothness, but that again seems to be a trait that you'll find with the Slovenian beers, so they're kind of taking it into their own unique place, I guess, if you like. There's a little bit of hoppy bitterness from this one. It's not going to blow your head in terms of IBUs. That said, it is a little bit more hoppy than some of the other Slovenian IPAs I've had. There's a nice kind of smoothness to the malt base. It's got a little bit of sweetness, but a little bit of grainy dryness as well, like I was mentioning, but mainly it's a nice juicy fruity IPA, this one. But it's very, very good quality, and again it's another very solid beer from Pivovarna Reservoir Dogs, so I'm really glad that I got to try this one. So yeah, the Grim Reaper, a nice IPA at 7% from Pivovarna Reservoir Dogs in Nova Gorica. There's a little bit of alcohol warmth to this one as well, which is quite interesting, so you will feel this beer after you have one or two of them, I would think, but it's a very good quality beer, and I think that's a good way to sum it up. If you like a nice juicy fruity IPA, if you're a fan of New Zealand style IPAs actually, I think you will enjoy the Slovenian IPAs, and vice versa. I think it's fair to say that in Slovenia they like their IPAs juicy, so if that's your sort of thing, then have a go at it. And there are some great hops in Slovenia, and I hope we start to see more of those in some other European breweries as well, but as I say, they're produced on a very small scale. But the Grim Reaper from Pivovarna Reservoir Dogs in Nova Gorica in Slovenia, another really good quality IPA. So a big thank you to Davor for making this review possible once again. Thank you to you guys who are watching, and it's been really cool to review another Slovenian beer. So until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Do check out my social media. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below, and let me know what your favourite beers are from Pivovarna Reservoir Dogs as well, and do let me know some other Slovenian beers that I should be reviewing. But thank you once again, and I will catch you guys very soon. Na zdravje, and make sure you check out Pivovarna Reservoir Dogs from Nova Gorica in the western part of Slovenia. Na zdravje.